links out of their chains. We're going to remove them from our society. We will not be a captured operation anymore. We're going to realign ourselves with proper government, proper jurisdiction, proper authorities for good. We're going to get our house in order in America. That's what this moment is all about.
Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values. Welcome. I'm Stacy Whited. This is David. Good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
We are excited to be here. Check out flyoverconservatives.com. Make sure you register for the newsletter. Make sure that you are getting notifications here, subscribing here. Give us a like. And then check out some of our merchandise. Check out our cool cups that we just got in. So Flyover Conservatives, you can check out the merchandise on Flyover Conservatives. We've got T-shirts that are really soft, hats, just all kinds of cool stuff. So check it out.
Lots of good stuff happening, and we got a great thing happening today. So a couple of housekeeping announcements before. We have a very special guest. This is a follow-up on a previous interview we did a few weeks back, and a follow-up on a live event that we were at this last weekend. That was a pulling together of digital soldiers, people from all over the country, from politicians to actors to producers, and I'm not sure how we ended up in the room, but we're really blessed to do it and to increase our friendship with our special guest today. I want to tell you this. I mentioned this before, but a couple of housekeeping tips. As we go through some of the content today, it is sensitive information. This is inside baseball type of information. It's information that's very urgent. And so if you're watching this, if you're on YouTube, you're one of the podcast formats, share this directly. You can put it on social media, but I want this to be up and available. I want to stay as a hair in the soup for as long as possible. I want to stay as a wrench in the engine of some of the mechanisms that are at play today as long as possible. So forward this to people that you care about. Post it inside of groups that you're a part of in the Facebook world, but text message it directly to people that you know could benefit from the information, people who are needing some hope, people who are needing some clarity, and people that are kind of needing a little bit of focus on, hey, what is happening next? Because this episode, we're going to be talking to you about what's going to be happening next over the next 30 days, over the next 90 days, and over the next year in our country, and as that extends around the world. So with no further ado, I want to introduce you to a gentleman that's just been at the right place at the right time throughout history, in the corporate world, in lots of different places I got to learn throughout this weekend. So with that, introduce our guest, Mr. Juan 07.
Hey,
Juan, how are you doing?
Welcome.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Great.
Are you recovered yet from your exciting weekend?
Well, getting there. I learned that hanging with you takes a while. You know, we had a special dinner with you, and it was for maybe 3 hours just chiseling on things at the table, and you know, going left and going right and zigging when I think you're going to zag, and mentally keeping up with you is a physical challenge.
He was exhausted.
Well, I actually, I'm kind of similar to the president in that I generally if I get a long night's sleep at 6 hours, most of the time it's about 4 hours, I will catch a nap here or there during the course of the day, but I really don't, the people around me fuss all the time that, because I'm 24/7, I'm fielding contacts, around the world. And so I have, I get calls when it's other people's daytime. Well, it's 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning. So for example, this morning, I actually hit the sack at about 4:30 local in the morning, and then I was up on my first call at about 7:30 local.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
And then I had breakfast I had to go down and do a breakfast here where I'm at, and then I went across town to the other side of town, did another breakfast with someone else. Both of them were critical, and then came back, had a couple-minute meeting. That's why I had to hold off for a few minutes before I started my call with you here. And then I've got meeting again as soon as we're done here. I've actually got about a dozen people waiting for me. And then this afternoon, I've got meetings with all of the technical staff on our 107daily.com. And of course, I talked to you behind the scenes just a moment ago about some of the developments there. They're pretty amazing, aren't they?
Yes.
We got
It's gonna
big
be-
names.
I got to be careful what I say for now.
That's
but,
going to be exciting.
But for those listening,
yeah.
stay tuned to the 107 Daily, because there's
Yes.
going to be some big things happening on that. And we want to hit, I see there on your coffee table, you've got
Your book.
the book, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
we referenced this last time, but when you see the
Kid on the
size,
side of the road.
if you're not a big reader and you like pictures, this is also
It's absolutely beautiful.
is a beautiful piece of art just to have around.
It is. It is absolutely beautiful.
Got
And
a
you can
picture
get
of
it.
that handsome guy on the back as
I
well.
know. You can get it on gumroad.com. Gumroad.com. And it's Kid by the Side of the Road by 107.
And this link, as well as anything else we reference throughout this show, will be in the call notes down below. So if you listen to this, just go to the notes here below,
Yeah, it is such a
hit
beautiful
that up,
book.
hit that up, and it's a fast read. It's something you can just sit in an evening and just enjoy and kind of go through. But 107daily.com for future media presences and outlets, and then to learn more about some of the things that are happening in the world. That's a great resource to be able to start with.
Definitely. And you get the good.
Well,
book again.
let me just do one thing. Let's have some fun for a second.
Come on.
Okay. So in 2015, I was approached by some folks that wanted me to, and I won't say their name, out of New York, New Jersey, actually, and wanted me to get behind their work to, have candidate Trump announce and then run for the presidency. And I said, well, I just don't know that there's enough depth in his team. Because the presidency it's not just one person, it's a whole team. And so as soon as you think you can do it just because you got a guy, that's not understanding the magnitude of the issue. So before he even announced to run for president, I had said on John B. Wells' show during an interview, I said, well, if Trump was to run for the presidency, let me here, just go to page 49 of my book, because I said the same thing again at a later time, but the first time I ever said it was on John Wells' show. So let me just read a paragraph for you. It's kind of fun. Let's see here. Let me find it here. 1 second.
Okay.
So here's what I read, and think about what we see going on in the world right now. Okay. So here we go. We have a long road ahead, and I don't think Washington, D.C. can really be cleaned up. It can't be fixed because it's already fixed as a rigged game. My advice to President Trump, and I said it's, if he was going to run as a candidate, he wasn't even a candidate when I first said this. And that kind of does have a pleasant and reverent ring to it, doesn't it? President Trump.
Yeah, it does.
My advice to President Trump is that he hire all his contractor buddies and have them get together as much fencing and all the various heavy equipment and materials that he needs to surround DC. Everything they can possibly muster. And then bring it all to D.C. under the protection of U.S. Marine Corps guards, utilizing close-in air support. They should proceed to surround D.C. with multiple layers of chain link fence and concertina wire.
Oh my gosh.
Just like we did at the city of Fallujah in Iraq. Simultaneously, we need to have all available military and armored National Guard units surround the city at the Beltway.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Did you have a time machine or something?
Anybody looked at DC recently?
Yeah.
Hello. Hey, President Trump had the whole city surrounded by chain link fence and concertina wire, 3 layers deep.
Unbelievable.
Well, I think we're just going to start calling you
And
Juanstradamus.
he's got the National Guard. He's got the Marine Corps. He's got everybody out there. They've surrounded the city.
It's true.
Once
It's true.
Juanstradamus. Ahead of his time.
Oh, my gosh.
Well,
And it's in
then the
writing.
next thing-
You have
Yeah.
proof that you didn't just say
Yes,
it. You have it in
yes.
writing.
you're not just referencing a
Well,
thought you
and-
had. You wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and of course, it's on. It's it's out there. I said it before he even announced for running for the president. I said it several times while he was candidate Trump. I've said it since. So it's kind of fun that it happened this way. Let me read this other. Oh, you're gonna love this one. So there's other stuff in between.
This is like
I'm
watching a
not-
movie
I'm
with
down.
one of the actors.
I know.
Well, so now I'm dropping down a few paragraphs. Okay, so let me just drop down just because I want to keep it short for your listeners. President Trump. Ooh, that's scary. President Trump. No, make it not so. The demons scream out from Washington, D.C. No, anything but that, please. Let us jump into the swine over by the Washington Monument, please. Right.
I think that's what they sound like.
I do too.
Okay, so here's another paragraph. President Trump should also request that patriot citizens show up for this national effort with all the toilet bowl cleaner they can lay their hands on. After which they'll provide that to the military guard units so that the cleaner can be dispersed into the soupy DC cauldron ASAP. God in his heaven knows it's going to take several flushes and plenty of Drano to clear those filthy pipes.
That is so true.
All the while, we, the citizen soldiers, will be keeping a sharp eye out for any of the blue-dyed toilet water and swamp creatures that might be attempting an escape through the tunnels, coming out at strange places, some even hundreds of miles away. By now, many of you know about the underground tunnels, including the DUMBs, deep underground military bases. So we are not dropping our guard units. I say we carry out 40 days and 40 flushes. Hey, just to be sure, God knows, maybe the total flushes should be more like 41 or 44. We'll see.
That's pretty good.
That is
you know when the bank
good.
robbers. Okay. So these guys, they robbed the bank. Okay, so the bank robbers, they go to open up the bag and pull out the cash, and what happens? It explodes in their hands, and they got a dye all over them. Okay, we throw the Drano in the swamp there, and they try to escape out the tunnels, and they come out 100 miles away. I didn't rob the bank. I didn't rob the bank.
me.
Well, what are you all dyed blue for?
Yes.
Man, that is so true.
Would you say that even President Trump was surprised at the depth of corruption in that city?
No.
You think he knew that the whole time?
Remember, President Trump, after Richard Nixon left the presidency, he and President Trump, then Citizen Trump, became best of friends. Nixon was able to school Trump on exactly what was going on, who was behind what, how they would come after him. Beside President Trump's desk when he was in the Oval Office, he had a letter from Pat Nixon. And the letter said, I hope someday you decide to run for the presidency. I know if you do, you'll win. And you will be a great president.
Wow.
Nixon schooled Trump on what was going to happen if he ran, how they'd come after him, who they'd use, what the mechanisms were. He didn't come into this as a neophyte. He knew they'd hate his guts. This has all been anticipated. One of the things that I trained guys over the years, you have to anticipate. You figure out what the options are, what the possibilities are, which way things might go. and you try to get a few moves ahead so that if they choose an option, you already have an option to respond to their option. Right now, everybody thinks that we're on our heels and are only responding, we lost the election. Now, look what's happening. It's horrible.
And there are some that feel that way,
Yeah.
but I would say there's a shocking number that don't feel that way, that are like, that are not on their heels at all, that actually feel very quite calm and assured of better days to come sooner than later.
Definitely
Let me ask
us.
you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Come on.
When we had our soiree this weekend, and all of our friends all showed up on a moment's notice, of all of that crowd of people, about 400 people showed up. You know, I like hot rods and race cars and all that. And there's a thing, the gumball rally. So you know it's coming somewhere in there. And all of a sudden the phone rings, you pick it up. Gumball. Oh, you race to the place where it starts and you start the gumball race. And you have 24 hours to be there to start the race. You know, what the deal was, I got a Jim Caviezel calls me. And so we're visiting. Jim Caviezel did the Count of Monte Cristo, and he did the Passion of the Christ. And so Jesus calls me.
Yeah. It's like,
hello?
Yeah, no kidding.
No kidding.
And he knew that I was doing a political meeting in Vegas with a bunch of people on some political stuff and some of the people supporting him like that in a strategy meeting. And he says, hey, you're going to be in Vegas. Why don't I pop over and I want to show you the trailer for this movie that we've got. We want to get it released, but we haven't, you know, COVID happened and everything else. So we haven't even got a start in place to release it and the strategy, but I want to show it to you and talk about it and see if you have any ideas. And I said, sure, that's fine. So he's going to get a copy and come over and show it. So I have a suite, and I was going to get a bigger suite to handle, you know, like a dozen people show this movie. Well, then that was on, I think, Thursday night. On Friday night, I talked to him. I says, maybe I need a suite that can handle like 20. So I'm going to call over to one of the other locations here in the area and see if I can get something a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's cool, because we got several people who wanted to join us. So then by Sunday, middle of the day, that's not cutting. I call a friend. I says, where can I maybe get a small theater or something? And he says, I got somebody. I'll go check and see if they got something. So he goes and checks. Yeah, you can get one seat about 100 people. And so I let everybody know, okay, we got a place, we can get 100 people. So by Sunday night, Monday morning, I'm like, gee, I don't know, with COVID, and we can only fill up to a third capacity, I'm already full. So I go over Monday morning, check up on it. It says, well, I really need probably the 200 seat theater so that I can, maybe get, 70, 80 people in. And then that's not enough by Tuesday. It says, well, actually, one 200 seat theater isn't going to cut it. I need the 200 seat theater for 2 showings. And the next day it's for 3 showings. And the next day, and you saw how I sent out a little note to everybody what time we're going to do it. It's 4 showings. And then some people are going to show up early because I'd said, well, let's do it next Sunday. Well, some people are coming in early. I'm like, well, just to give something to do. And Jennifer Mack, who was going to be there, she's got this film, The Called, that we made going out to DC. And I said, well, I think it could show on the big screen. Let's try and do it, on the big screen. So I go over, we test it, we do all the stuff. Hey, it works. So I put in, I said, well, we got 4 screens there. Might as well get 4 screenings here. So we put the Called up for 4 screenings. And then I'm talking with Jim Caviezel. He says, well, but I can't make it Saturday. And I want to see that. Can you do another screening on Monday? I said, yeah. So then we get another screening for that on Monday. So the end result is we have these theaters all tied up for the whole weekend. Then we told people, come on out. Well, shoot, we had 400 people show up on
Less
what
than
for
a week's
most of them was
notice.
about 3 days. Well,
Yeah.
really, it was for most people was only 3 days notice, because initially, by the time we were halfway into the week, and it was only a dozen people that kind of knew them, and a couple of their friends might be coming. Next thing you know, I got 400 people. I got people are flying in from 30 states around the country. We had, Hawaii, everywhere.
all over.
And
It's
so we had
such a crazy mix of people
Yeah,
that I don't know
different
that on a
backgrounds.
Venn diagram that their lives would have overlapped any way other than you.
Well,
We
I
had
will tell
Dr.
you this: we had two very, very. I don't like to throw it around, but I just say they're both billionaires, and then somebody that's representing a billionaire that couldn't be there but wanted to have one of his people there. I had several people who were one that cares for her mom and dad, who's been to some prophecy conferences and like that, who's a friend of Jennifer Mack that wanted to come, who became very instrumental in a lot of minutia of getting things taken care of. We had the guys that do the cowboy conservative thing. They do Bible readings as though the scripture was talking about Texas and Texans.
and for people from Texas, it's like,
Of course.
there is no other place in the world.
What
So
other place
They
is
have
there?
a small podcast. Stuart and his partner, they have a small podcast, and they read stories out of the Bible, but as though it was Texans.
That is hilarious.
It is hilarious. They're so cool. It's the funniest thing. And so they'll tell stuff. I'll be rolling in the aisles. I mean, as they're doing stuff, going, "Yep, that's the way they would see something. That's the way they'd think about it."
and we'll put the link to their podcast down below the call notes here if you guys are looking for these guys.
Fun to
yeah,
watch.
they're gonna have their show over at 107 Daily. I'm gonna freaking focus on that. I love cowboy stuff, so it's just a part of having a ranch and stuff like that. You just enjoy that stuff. So anyway, we had a very eclectic, and then I got the top marketing guy in Hollywood. I mean, I think the total number was $170 billion in movie revenue, was stuff that he personally supervised those projects. I mean,
Wow.
silverback gorilla of guys in Hollywood marketing. He was there. We sat and we actually had a private party after you guys left on Tuesday night, and then worked through details on Caviezel's film, and Jim was there, and several other people were there, but we went through that. So there was a lot of, and then we had other, we had numerous military guys there. We had a beautiful friend of mine and his wife, who he was the general in charge of operations there at Fallujah. So when I mentioned Washington, D.C. a second ago, and rounding the city 3 layers deep in concert in chain link fencing, barbed wire, concertina wire, he's the guy that actually did that in Fallujah.
Wow.
And he actually had a mortar that landed right at his feet, a foot away, and it would have killed him, but his guys loved him so much. They did unbelievable stuff to keep him alive long enough to get him into hospital triage. He had exactly the right guys, and you saw him walking around.
Yep.
Amazing, beautiful guy. Did you get to eat? Did you have dinner with him?
Yeah, he and his wife are incredible.
Yeah,
General Harold, we're gonna
interview them.
we're gonna have him on the show, and I want to really dig into the relationship in their marriage and what it's like to go through that and hear from the both of them together.
Yes.
I think that would be a really great conversation, and they agreed to do that. So we're just scheduling it right now.
Well, and again, so we're talking about what's this crowd look like that showed up on a moment's notice. They're out there in East Tennessee. We're on the other side of the country out here in Vegas, and on a moment's notice, they dropped everything, came out. That was everybody that showed up. So you had about 400 people show up at an event that, was put together in days.
Wow.
Now, a year or two ago, without the COVID in place, I don't think you could have done this same, excuse me, you couldn't have done this same event
Yeah.
because people would have had too much life in the way. Well, I've got appointments with the babies. I got, I got this work project. I got, the mortgage. I got all stuff. People couldn't have broken away.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to, it was a very impromptu, instantaneous thing. And hundreds of people came from all over the country. And I would say that the movie The Called, The Makings for a Perfect Day, that Jennifer Mack's movie, was really a theme for the weekend. Everybody just showed up and you had to be there. And I'm not people say that kind of tritely in events. How was your perception? Was this something that you had to be there if you were in this zone? I mean, this was
No,
a
it
not
was,
miss it
we
event.
wanted to be there to have that opportunity to meet all these different people, but also to see this film that was so impactful. I mean,
the Sound of Freedom, even sharing the trailer,
yeah,
with people. There's moments in history. I mean, part of it was this weekend, but there's a lot of moments. If you're alive at that time, you need to be at that place.
yes.
When certain things are happening, and I think we're at that moment where 20 years from now, where the story is being told of how was America saved, how was freedom saved, how we're going to get into the Sound of Freedom movie in a moment, but how were these millions of children that have been taken and abused, how were they saved?
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to be telling the story of where were you during that moment? Where were you when the country was being saved? Where were you when these millions of children are being saved? And one of our themes on this show is just wake up, speak up, and show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody is hungry for an opportunity to show up, of like, what's going on in the world right now and what can I do to show up? And so when you rang that bell, people heard it and they responded from,
Like
again,
you said, from everywhere. I mean, they flew in from Hawaii,
dozens,
30 states. That's pretty amazing.
Dozens of politicians and activists. And I'm sitting next to a guy who's a hedge fund investor from New York City that just, a friend of a friend told him about it and came. So it's just,
yeah,
it's just a unique group of people, but people are hungry on all levels. And I think people listening right now, if you agree, give us your notes down below. What are you doing to show up? But people are hungry to show up in the world right now because there's some big things happening and they don't want to miss out on it.
it's true.
Well, and the beauty of that was even the networking. I mentioned to everybody, get a chance to meet people and do a little bit of networking, and the things that happened as a result of that. William flew out on the hedge fund stuff, and I said, well, shoot, you're coming in a day early. Let's run over to a particular friend's business, and I want to show you something. So when other people found out we were going and other people were coming in early, ended up taking, I think, a dozen guys. It was 9 guys. And with the other senior staff there when we got there, there was about a dozen of us and going through a particular building process. And shoot, everyone there that happened to be there was like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I got to be part of this. And so that guy that you just mentioned there went back, and he's already working on a $50 million deal on that he thinks he might have something put together in the next 2 weeks. So, zone that it just kind of all gelled together. And then even on the political stuff, that was the same thing. It was only decided the day before I was going to come over to Vegas. We're going to do a kind of a high level briefing meeting. And we had, 60 people there at that meeting. And it was very important. It actually was a tremendous turnout, and that was up at one of the great country clubs up here. So we just had a whole bunch of stuff. And the reason I mention all that, it's not just to be, oh yeah, we did this big thing. I'm saying this because there's a lot of pent up energy.
Yes.
It's like there's all of this behind the dam. It's ready to be released.
Yep. And
we just put a little crack in the dam, and all this came rushing through.
Yes.
Now, what's the follow up on this. Even the things I told you behind the scenes that happened Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Let me just tease some of your listeners. I don't want to go into it in great detail, but I had a friend, I haven't talked to him for about 5 years. He worked for me, 3 decades ago on some projects behind the scenes, 4 decades ago, and kind of sensitive stuff. And then, lost track of him a bit. We've crossed paths a few times, but this individual had actually been struck by lightning.
That is crazy.
It's funny because he
hears
lived.
things
I
from
know.
God. I got struck by lightning. I hear things from God. Oh, okay. So that got some of the wax out of here. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Oh, yeah, that wax is gone now. I can hear clearly. Speak,
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
You don't have to yell. But he actually died 3 different times.
Wow.
And he talks about, I'm the king of death. Even Jesus only was raised from the dead once. I've been raised from the dead 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
But he's kidding. He's not trying. He's actually a very humble guy. He's a sweet guy. But he kids about that, all right, already. I got it. No more lightning.
I'm listening.
No kidding.
I'm listening. Yes. But so we had a get together on Tuesday night. So I got to tell you this one thing. So I'm over at the hotel where you folks were at, and I had just come out, and of course I had my red vet, so it's pretty flamboyant because I tend to do that. So I'm out there, and everybody's looking at it, and they're all.
At least you're honest with
about
yourself.
that.
That's important.
Yeah. So I'm out there, and it's a rear engine vet, and so everybody's looking at it, and so I kind of stand back a minute because I don't just race off. I let everybody kind of enjoy it like that. And somebody wanted me to sign one of the books, and so I sign it, and then I look up, and here's my buddy. I said, "Oh my gosh, Dan, it's you. What are you doing?" And we look at each other. We talk for a second or two, and I says, "Hey, I haven't got time to talk right now because I was racing off to a meeting. And I don't want to give you a bum's rush. Why don't you join me? We got dinner at a friend's house tomorrow. Let's see, I was that night. Yeah, it was Tuesday. It was that night. So come on over." And so he shows up, and I was busy in this other meeting trying to work through this marketing thing. So I didn't have time to really talk. He's visiting with other guests, and we're having, and then we get all done with that, and we had an entertainer that was there that oh my gosh, he was phenomenal, just a great guy, conservative guy, but if you saw him, you'd think he was from a punk rock band or whatever, but he just did an amazing thing for fun for us that night. And then afterwards, I wanted to go spend some time with my buddy, and we're talking, and he was enjoying himself, and so he'd had a couple of drinks. I says, "Hey, I don't think you should drive home. Let me drive you home." Nah, nope, I'm driving you home. So I got one of the guys to follow me, and I give him a drive home. He gives me a couple of wrong directions. It takes 45 minutes to do a 15-minute drive. But in that time, he's able to sober up a little bit. And because he just had like one extra drink, it wasn't horrible, but it was enough that I just didn't feel comfortable with him driving. And so we're talking, having a good time, laughing. And I says, he says, "No, I got to tell you what happened. I just put you together with JUAN, and you don't know this, but I was doing a radio show. I was getting ready to do an interview about near-death experiences. And so the host that wanted me to do it wanted me to do about America having a near-death experience, just like I'd had a near-death experience. And so he's telling me, I was comparing this, and I listened to the show, which I did this show almost a year ago on Jennifer Mack's channel, Choose This Day.
Yep, that's a
about
great
near-death experiences, and I compared what's going on in America and what was going to happen at the election. with a near-death experience for America. Now you look at what's going on and the way people talk and all the drama, and they're all upset about how America is about to have this near-death experience. It's a very traumatic thing.
Right.
And so I had done that. So my friend had listened, and then he wanted to do this on that near-death experience also. And then he all of a sudden he realizes, well, it's me. And so he has to tell me that when he listened to that, he had a word from the Lord, and he wanted to pass it to me. Didn't know how to get to me, and didn't know anything about it. When he had heard that, prepared for that show, and said he wanted to talk to me, it was after that, the next morning, that I'm at the hotel showing up in my red hot rod, and he comes over to take a look at it, and lo and behold, here we are, cross paths. I mean,
that is a divine appointment. I mean, that
oh
is
my
unbelievable.
gosh.
Wow.
I mean, I haven't seen him in 5 years. We haven't talked, 5 years. Hadn't seen him probably in 15, but we talked, and then all of a sudden here we are at the same place. And and he was able, because I had all the people at the party and I couldn't really talk to them. We had like 30 people or so there for this business meeting at dinner that then had a little get together afterwards. But I was too busy with everything, and I couldn't really just take the time to talk with him. Well, because he had a couple extra drinks. Now I have to talk to him.
Right.
Okay.
It worked out
and
perfectly.
I got him in the car. We have a private audience, and he tells me what he had to say, which was totally just unplanned. I get him dropped off. My buddy follows me. We get in the car. We're driving back, and he says, my partner and I need to talk to him tomorrow. But, with what we talked about in this business meeting, I think we could fund that to make this go over the top for this Sound of Freedom things, for something we had to do. So let me talk to him in the morning. We'd had, so I have a half hour in the car with him, going through the details, the mechanics of exactly what we had figured out needed to be done. He says, now that I know it, and especially the way you put it to me, I think we're fine. And the next morning he calls up and says, hey, done. We're in. We got it. So those two things, to most people, I think that this is a man of God, and he's had a drink too many. Oh, he needs to get struck by lightning again. He's not listening. I get from the pulpit, and God said, don't. He had a little. He's having a good day. So he was having fun. He said it was one of the most enjoyable days he's had in 15 years. He was so glad. He had such a great time. And then we had this meeting, and he got it off his chest, something that he said he had to tell me, and he ends up with this situation where he gets to tell me.
Not even knowing initially it was you when he got it from God.
No.
It was for 107 that he didn't know it was you. I mean, that is such a great story.
And all I'm saying is, even to the rest of your listeners, if you have a sense of expectation, and you're looking for some guidance from above, and you're praying, there's certain seasons where, like the pool of Siloam, and the angel would stir the water, and they'd try to jump in. And if they could get there when the water was stirred, they'd be healed. There's certain moments in time when there's a move of God. And if you're right there, you get to be part of some move of God, and there's a blessing that comes from that. Just like everybody that was there this last weekend, there was lots of people that we put the word out that, come on, join us. And they didn't show up. They had this, they had that, something happened. They didn't catch the plane, whatever. It doesn't mean that they're not godly or important or that whatever, but they're, for whatever reason, they weren't supposed to be in this particular phase. And from the gal that became very important, who's just caring for her parents, she doesn't work, she's not doing anything, she's living on a little Social Security, and she shows up and becomes a critical part of this thing, to the billionaire. Each person had a place in what happened. They really, really, really did. So it was like a called moment. It was so beautiful. And to be there and see it, the way it evolved, was, just excellent. And this is going to continue to happen, because the next phase is the stuff that I won't get into right now. but is coming very shortly with the release of this movie, with a special event and then the general release. And those that are there to go to that early part and be the people that present to the rest of the world, I think it's going to be one of the biggest movies ever released, maybe the biggest ever. Jim feels the same way. There's a certain moment in time when we must do what we must do to help these innocents, to help these children, to help these human trafficking victims. This is this moment that we're in, and we have an assignment, a mission from God. And this is that anointed moment. And we're going to be bringing more people into this, doing important things as we go out and be our brother's brother and save the world.
Man,
With
that's true.
this message, there were so many things, even on the numbers. I mentioned to you, it was kind of fun. After I showed Jim this movie, The Called, in a showing on Monday, and it was just going to be Jim and me watching the movie. So we get in there, everybody had heard, yeah, no, come on, if you want to come, go ahead. So it's a 200-seat theater. There's like 150 people in there.
Wow.
At 11 o'clock on a Monday. And so we have this, it was just a blast. And then I got up and answered some questions, and Jim had some questions. And so everybody had, we had a fun exchange. We didn't get out of the theater till the management came in, a couple minutes before 2. We have another showing. You've got to leave. There's a customer. There's a customer.
Well, let me tie a couple things together here real quick. So I want to hit the film and kind of what it's about, and then kind of tell people what we're going to tell them. We're going to circle back around to the wire fence and the DUMBs and the deep underground military base stuff in DC, and how does that all tie together with this movie from Jim Caviezel? Because this isn't like it just happened to be a movie. It's a movie for such a time as this.
Yep.
And it ties into everything else that's happening. This isn't a comedy. This isn't a Jim Carrey movie or one of these things. It's a once in a generation, once in a lifetime type of movie that takes something that people know exists and puts a face to it in a way that changes you, that you're never the same.
It's true. It's based on a true story. It's about sex trafficking, and at the end they give some stats that were pretty eye-opening. $150 billion2 with sex trafficking, more slaves now than any other time in history,
including when slavery was legal.
Yep. 2 million children taken each year. Those stats are just very sobering, So as we watch the movie, something that was based on a true story with real characters, real people at the end, even showing the faces of these real people, it's like...
It's based on the real life experiences of Tim Ballard. And so we'll put some links to some interviews with Tim Ballard down below as well.
You can't ignore it. You can't be like, oh, that was just a movie. No, this is real life, and it's happening, and it's something people don't like to talk about, but it is happening, and we have to talk about it.
Well, let me just say this. The very fact that just a simple call and a chance to revisit, COVID stopped the movie industry for a period of time. There had been conversation going on continuously, even various people seeing the movie in the industry, and thinking about what that release was, when would be the time, what would be the circumstances, blah blah blah, who's going to finance it, etc. But when the moment came, in my opinion, it came of age, and then there was a certain way that God wanted to do it. It's like what I said with what's happening in America. If it's seen as a move of man, if Trump saves America, that's destined for disaster. It's not about a man, even somebody that in some circles we may have great admiration for, etc. God doesn't want to share his move with any man.
Right.
This is going to be a move of God that saves America. This is all the people that showed up answered a call, but it wasn't for Jim Caviezel or me or any of the other players. It was to be part of an important, as I said the whole time, it was just about seeing the movie, a private screening, and then think about our way forward from there, and get a chance to rub shoulders with some other patriots and close ranks. And all of a sudden, just everybody shows up. When we do this next phase, which is a broader phase out across the country, I expect the same kind of a response for your audience and similar audiences to show up in this early phase and be counted and prepare, because what's going to come as the year goes on, especially starting in early spring, is that you're going to find out a lot of the evil and dastardly things that have been being done in your name as a nation and by people in positions of great power and authority, how they themselves were compromised, captured, honeypotted, blackmailed to do a lot of the things that they do. And it relates to this pedophilia and worse, the human trafficking, various horrible things, both here in the United States and around the world. And as those revelations come out, I think people's attitude is going to change radically about some of these people in positions of power and authority, and both here in the United States and around the world. When that happens, part of the understanding by people that don't normally, nice, proper people that don't get into this subject matter and they don't really, know that much about it. Well, maybe you have to know. Remember, in Israel, here you have the people that go into the promised land, they take over, they bring the walls of Jericho down and all this other stuff, and they occupy the land that God had for them. But the people that were there, these Canaanites, they were a very evil crowd, and they were doing horrendous things. They were making their children to pass through the flame. That is preacher talk for something far more dastardly. It makes it sound like, oh, it was a Hollywood movie, two-dimensional on the big screen. It was the baby who went through the flames. They were roasting their children alive, sacrificing them to Baal and Moloch. These are Baal worshipers. They were horrendous, evil. They were sacrificing their children to this evil god so they could have a nice, rich harvest and have wealth and have success. And their God is going to bless them for sacrificing their children.
Just sick.
And yet, well, that doesn't happen in America. You haven't been watching the abortion clinics where people, it's going to be an inconvenience. This is going to be an inconvenience. This is not a this. It's
a person.
Human being. It's a child of God. You're selling your children for wealth, for a good harvest. God's children aren't for sale. When that is understood by people in flyover country and the cities equally, America will be on the path back to greatness, back to being who we were appointed, anointed to be from the beginning. But somewhere we lost the way. We went off the left track instead of the right track. We're hell-bound, not heaven-bound. And we have to own that back. And hello, I say the abortion clinics, but you have small children, very young children, being sold out just as much. And people looking the other way as they're being trafficked into the United States over the borders, being trafficked into the United States on shipping containers. That is very, very, very real.
Well,
That
it's
is not some pipe dream myth.
that's what this movie drives home, and that's the power of a medium like that. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so a movie's probably worth a few million words, and it can paint a scenario in a way that, you know what, I was ignorant to that, now I'm not. I'll never be able to unsee what I just saw, and
want to do something.
Want to take action,
like take action on it.
The thing that kept hitting me, Juan, was where's the market for this? If you invented a new gadget, the first thing you'd ask is, okay, that's neat and clever, but who's going to buy this? You know, where's the customer base? Who is this? And the movie really shows it could be a Colombian drug lord, or it could be a guy that looks like he goes to the Baptist street down the road. You know, it doesn't, people don't wear T-shirts and say, hey, I'm a pedophile. Hey, I do these things. And Stacy mentions the 150
Well, that
billion.
might not be completely the case. You know, let me say this: they're getting more flamboyant all the time, and I know the whole thing about the Norse god bullshit on the tattoo on the guy at the Capitol during the riot. But you know what? That's a great cover story. The reality is that guy in the riot at the Capitol has a pedophilia symbol 3 times overlapped itself on his chest.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I'm not buying the rest of the story. You can try to sell it. I'm not buying it.
It's in the lyrics. It's in the music videos.
He is.
Yep.
Okay, go look at the picture. Go look at the CNN, look at the guy's chest, and then tell me that's not a pedophile symbol. Then the FBI is looking everywhere. Hey, there's a person that was there rioting. He's from Kansas, and we're going to stop him from ever flying on a plane to Washington, D.C. again, because his cell phone shows he was somewhere on the street at the Capitol. Are you kidding me? And you got the guy that's got, look, the FBI. All you got to do is go into the FBI's website. The imagery, the symbolism of pedophilia. And right there in the symbolism is the triangle that goes into this concentric closing turns in the triangle. And it's a pedophile symbol. And the guy's got 3 of them on his chest, and he's there at the riots taking down the Capitol. And oh, by the way, we have some of these same players, and they're at BLM rallies and all this stuff. Something's wrong. They're trying to paint us a certain way that isn't true, isn't truly who we are, and infiltrate our ranks.
It's in corporate logos that it's all over the place, and the symbology of that darkness is right in front of us. And I think that's the awakening. You know, people use the term the Great Awakening. I think that's the awakening that's going to come, and I think that this movie is going to usher that in, something that people wouldn't normally talk about at a dinner or at maybe a Sunday school class or some of these places. They're not going to talk about the darkest things that could happen, but it's time that they did, and this movie is going to set the table for those conversations to take place.
It's true.
So now we go back to when we're going to have a couple guys sitting around the table having a conversation, try to think about marketing. And it turns into 400 people show up on, 3-4 days notice for this private showing. Those that were called, and I would say that you folks, there was a calling on your being present that wasn't, from man, it was from God, that you needed to be there, not just for yourself, but for this audience that you're speaking to right now. You needed to be able to articulate, to converse about this, and it's kind of a layered response. God is calling certain of those people who are in hinge positions to be the mouthpiece, to vocalize to them, this you have to go be part of, you have to attend, you have to be counted. And what's that about? We'll do this pre-release release at a certain point, and those people that are in your audience should come see this, understand what's said, and then be ready to have the broader conversation with their friends, their relatives, the other people that may not really understand or know this subject matter, but need to, because it's going to be a big part of the public conversation in America and around the world in the months to come, and out through the remainder of this year. The Epstein stuff, that trial is going to continue on. There's going to be all sorts of new disclosures. Certain other stuff from the political realm, players, business realm, etc., is going to be revealed related to these crimes against children. And even though it's subject matter that might not be, pleasant, it still has to be discussed. Part of the issue with the marketing on the movie, because you can't do it for nothing. It costs money to do this stuff. People invested to make this movie, and they need to have that return, so they have money to do the next one. Everybody thinks that God's people should do everything they do and give it all away for free. Well, some of us can do that, and others of us can't. And it's in order to have the money, they're doing another movie to follow on this one that's even more important, way more important. I don't want to get into the details of it, but you understand the subject matter. You go, oh my gosh! And this movie was compelling. The next one will be amazing in going deeper and understanding it and revealing things. But they got to be able to do it. It costs, tens and tens of millions of dollars to do something like this. Certain people have a calling to handle the finance stuff. And they do it. They get a reasonable return. We as Christians, as persons of faith or whatever, we shoulder up and pay something for our part to do it, to promote the people that bring these things to light, that go out and do this stuff. They're doing a service to us. I'll pay that money every day and go in there and have and support people that are bringing truth out. In the thumbnail you did today, what's this about? This is about people speaking the truth. Well, I'm going to support those people. So those people that went and made a movie to explain to us what's really going on, to bring the truth of this to some type of reality so we could feel it. I mean, you went to the movie. Did you feel the emotions of each person? Could you have gotten that just in a conversation on the internet? Well, maybe you could have. But then again, it's a bit more surface. It's a bit thinner. To see it portrayed as it actually happened, and to see the drama. And remember, even what you saw was actually quite a bit detuned, because it has to be at least showable to a general audience. There's a lot of aspects to it that you just can't show it.
Right.
They do a beautiful job too of not showing anything graphically that might, say, trigger somebody with that weakness. There's nothing, nothing of a sexual nature in it, but what's happening, what takes place. It was done tastefully, but it is still, if you have an ounce of goodness in you, if you've ever had a grandchild or a child, or, it's painful to sit in a little bit, because you want to look away. You almost want to walk out, of like, oh, this is happening. And the acting in it is just phenomenal. Every single person in it is a high level person.
And they did a great job. And, it does take, you don't just get up when the credits start rolling. It's like, it's just soaking it all in, and wow, okay, this is really deep. And you're right, Juan, it's way more than just a conversation. When you see it, when you're there, it really puts something in you to want to show up and speak up. It's like, okay, I'm showing up, I'm here now, I'm going to speak up against this, because you're very deeply convicted. Once you know it, you can't turn back and be like, oh, I don't know that. You already know it, so therefore you have to take action.
Juan, I have a question for you.
Well,
go ahead. At the end of the movie, we had the conversation. We were talking there with Jim Caviezel, and he made the expression. He said, "This will be earth-shattering when you see who's all involved. When people see the size, the scale, and the scope of this." And I think the movie sets the table for exposure. Now, those were all real people. That movie is based on actual real events that took place. but it opens the door for people to have now maybe a mental and an emotional vocabulary to process what's actually going to be revealed in front of all of us, I think, on a much bigger scale. What's kind of your words
Well,
to a country headed
let
in
me
that
just say
direction?
that the reason that this went the way it did, I actually do put it in some kind of a divine move, appointed moment, that there's some aspect of this that's way beyond you or I or any of the people that were directly involved. There was something else, because we need this tool in order to, it's part of an awakening process for the broader American public and the rest of the world. You have to pick a lane. You have to pick a side. You can't be, you know, um, on the fence about it. And so it personalizes it. It challenges, and you can't be complacent about it, or it doesn't happen around me, or I don't have anything to, there's nothing I can do about it. Um, it's you'll see the movie, you'll understand. If you're called to see the movie, you'll understand. I believe it's just like the called, even being there to be presented the day before, it's has a certain message or tone to it. Everybody that showed up this weekend was the called. And then we got the message that we were called there to hear, and we go back and we prepare for that moment when we're going to share that message, and spread it more broadly. You're going to have a chance to digest it. You mentioned the credits at the end, and I said during one or two of the screenings, the credits go on for about 5 minutes, explaining the history afterwards, and for the children that were actually saved and like that. I needed every minute of that time with the lights down and the credits on to get the emotion cleared, so that I could speak. And without that several minutes, I couldn't talk.
Yep.
And I think that's a common thing, and it doesn't matter that you've seen it already. It's still the same response even after a couple of times. You don't get inured to it. You don't get thick-skinned about it. It's very real, and you have to take a deep breath about it. And from a marketing standpoint, so do people want to go to a movie? They want to come out entertained and blissful, and they went out for a nice evening out. Are they going to come from a Hollywood perspective? Is this a movie that, you want to go see it and you want to be challenged by it and everything else? Would people normally want to come out and see this movie? I think it is one that they will, but it's probably in part because others have seen it, understand it, and say something. And that's us, in a broader sense, your audience, that will show up early on to understand it better. We're going to do some things that are going to help them and arm them. And we have a kind of a plan that came out of our meeting the other night. And it was, again, I go back to the whole weekend had a certain anointing. It's just like the guy showing up, he has a message from God. I have a message from God for you. No, I'm not going to get struck by lightning, am I? Jim Caviezel got struck by lightning. You got struck by lightning.
I know,
I have two
people.
guys struck by lightning in the same meeting at the same time. What are the odds of even having that happen? And God called one of them like at the last second. I'm afraid to go outside. I see a cloud. Okay, I'm staying inside.
It's true. You were two people at the same place at the same time that have been struck by lightning.
It's like that
and one of them tells me, "I've got a message from God for you. I didn't even know you were going to be here." Oh my gosh, really?
It's like a combination of Blues Brothers and that movie with John Candy.
Yeah. I know I was a little over the speed limit, but it was a really nice day.
Yeah, the odds
No.
pretty slim.
I changed cars. God can't find me. I felt like Jonah. Okay, no, I'm getting out of the red car. I got in the silver one. I'm safe now.
Yeah.
He won't find me now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like the combination of the Blues Brothers, I'm on a mission from God, and then the movie The John Candy, where the guy's sitting at the bar and he stutters because he doesn't want to go outside when it's raining because he's been struck by lightning like 70 times or something, you know.
Well, I
say,
mean, but it was that kind of week. I mean, I got another one for you. Okay, people think so. Jim and I, we leave after that 11 o'clock showing, and we talked, and the audience is there, and it ended up being like an hour and 45 minutes, and so, you know, and I mean, till they had to kick us out because there was a customer for the next movie, so Jim wants to go over to Carol Shelby's showroom over here, and so. Because I have a Shelby, he has a Shelby, and he wants to go over and just look. And you know, I knew Carol and all that, so we go over, and we're hanging out with the plant manager and like that, and we're looking at all the cars. We get, you know, because you know we get, you know, VIP treatment. It was kind of fun, you know, and so we're soaking it up and just having a great time. And as we're walking through back in the shop in the back, and we're looking there doing all the engines, and they got all the parts off and the fenders off, and Jim's talking about change to his car that he'd done a thing with Jay Leno, and we're back there looking at everything. And you know, I'm looking at this truck because I had talked about, you know, I was debating whether I was going to get a Lincoln truck and go for the luxury or get a Shelby truck. I did that on V's broadcast, one of the ones that they pulled down because I said, you know, COVID or something, you know, at some point in time. So anyway, and by the way, before I said this, so I did a broadcast over at V's, and he got taken down a couple times. So now he's down till the end of April. And when YouTube pulled down his broadcast, they pulled the broadcast down when it has exactly 107,000 views.
That is crazy.
Exactly 107,000 views. They pull it
probably
down.
not an accident.
No.
Not an accident, right? Okay, so we're back in the shop over at Shelby's. We're walking through, we're looking at stuff, and I hadn't asked anything about, you know, prices or anything. I know they're expensive, and so we buy this truck, and we're looking at it, and it's black Shelby truck, and it's got gray on it. It's kind of cool. I'm kind of looking at it. It's a cool truck, and so I says, you know, they're putting a supercharger on it, this modification that they do. And so I'm looking at it, and I asked the plant manager, I says, what's a truck like this go for? You know, what's the price on something like this approximately? Well, they have modifications and everything else, but they go for about 107,000. Well, shoot, you might as well have thrown cheese in front of me if I was a freaking cat. Okay, catnip. Okay, 107,000, 107. Oh.
I mean, it wasn't 110. It wasn't 105. It was 107.
Oh my God!
Approximately.
He has no idea. He has zero idea.
That
and he
is
says
crazy.
107,000, and I'm like, okay, where do I sign?
Like, that's my code name, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Oh my gosh! I'm like, you know, so my partner says on my 107 Daily, you know. He says, well, you got to get rid of one of your vets and get the truck. You got more vets than you need. You need a truck. So I'm like, yeah, maybe I do. So actually, I might actually give away one of my vets. We'll see when we get over to 107 Daily. I've got one that's a very, very customized Z51 that's just amazing car. I'm actually driving it today. It's a fun car, but we might actually do that. I pulled it out to kind of think about what we might do. So anyway, but my whole point is you think about, you know, even little hidden signs. Is it the messenger of God who gets struck by lightning that's a buddy and then shows up at the side of the valet, the 2 minutes that you're there out of, you know, days and days, and then, you know, it's a place I don't ever go to normally. I had never even been there before this weekend. And then at exactly the right instant, he is standing there waiting. And then if I'd pulled up in any other car, we wouldn't even notice each other. Everybody kind of came over because they wanted to look at the car. So I'm there in my neon light bulb car. Boing, boing, boing. Come over here. You know, God said, shuffle them over there. Come over this way, you know. Hey, it's not exactly, sometimes these things aren't accidents.
No.
And even there's this little thing with these little extra imprints that happen in very unusual ways. Even even that thing that you might not recognize, you know, as a nudge from God or something. So my guy has an extra drink that he probably shouldn't have. No, I don't want him to drive home. And then I get that isolated minute when I get that word that I needed to hear, that he was sent there to give me, that he had, you know, what the wild thing is, before that moment, he didn't even know anything, and he has this word, he's got to deliver it, and then he ends up at the valet at exactly the right moment, and there I am.
Wow. I mean,
Okay.
that
And
that is
all I
quite
did,
the
I went over
story.
there that day. I went over there. I just went over to adjust something or other for somebody, and I popped in. I think I was only there for about 10 minutes.
Wow.
So again, and it was just something that came up. That's the kind of hidden thing that's from God. I would just say that all of your listeners, now listen really carefully, just like you guys got an amazing blessing because you were there, you answered this call at the critical moment, and then bam, you got amazing blessing. Uh, you know, some guests you'll do, some things that happen, some context that'll be there for your whole life. You say, "Oh, people, oh, I missed out. Oh, that's too bad. Those guys got to do some." No, 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 no. You're there representing your listenership, and you're going to then pass the baton, convey the blessing. You're a channel of blessing. Everybody who participates in what comes next, when the time comes and we announce it and do whatever, and they show up early, there's an additional blessing, and it hasn't been diluted. That's the thing. When
Right.
God's moving,
Yeah.
if you're in the flow of the blessing, it never gets diluted. It will get magnified further. Those people that answered the call in this next phase will equally and even more so enjoy a blessing because they're in the flow of God. And what's the purpose here? To stop these monsters
Mm-hmm.
from occupying the ground we walk on, from walking on the streets, sharing the streets with us,
That's exactly
hiding in
right.
plain sight, running our country, running our government in positions of authority, running
Mm-hmm.
companies that we're trying to do business in and function in and communicate through. Every facet of our life is touched by these people who have a different way of looking at things, and their way of looking at things is totally at odds with the will of God for his people. We're going to take our country back. We're going to cut the links out of their chains. We're going to remove them from our society. We will not be a captured operation anymore. We're going to realign ourselves with proper government, proper jurisdiction, proper authorities for good. We're going to get our house in order in America. And then we're going to go out to the world, not to be our brother's keeper, not to lord it over the rest of the world, but to be our brother's brother to the rest of the world. That's what this moment is all about.
Man, that's
You know,
so
and
good.
that's the difference between artificially manufacturing energy around something that there's actually nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, beefing up or padding numbers, padding stats, trying to, the marketing and everything, trying to make something more out of something than there really is, versus, we've always used the expression of we would rather see what is God doing and go try to build something around it than to build something and try and talk God into joining us. And there's
It's much easier if you go where God is.
like, hey, let's just drop it. Whatever we're doing, let's drop it. Because it's going to be better off to go join God in whatever he's already doing with or without us.
Yeah.
He's not, his plans aren't contingent upon my engagement. I get the opportunity to bring whatever gifting he's given me and join him in what he's doing. Let me ask you a question real quick. I'm most fascinated with the story of Noah. I heard somebody talk about Noah recently, and we admire him for his faith of taking 120 years to build a boat in a culture where they'd never actually had rain. And you think that would take a lot of faith, and he has this building project, but during that time he's building and he's going, but he's following a clear word from God. God gave him all these tasks, this much wood and this, all the things he's going to need to do it. And he spends 120 years building a boat, in a place where there are no boats. So, I mean, that would be a lot of faith. But I heard somebody reference recently, they said, there was a 2-week period after that where the faith was really shown. There was 1 week where the animals were coming, But there's another whole week of Noah now sitting in this boat with no rain. And I think we're in some ways in that season a little bit right now.
Yep.
Of
we are waiting on the rain.
The boats, but like everybody feels like we're maybe waking up each day in some alternative reality, and things are shown to us to be this way on CNN and Fox and all this kind of thing. And then, but we know, hey, there's another reality that we think is actually more real. And when do things get to be made right? And I think the most faith isn't required during the 120 years of building. The highest level of faith is required during that 1 week of waiting. How long would that have felt for Noah to sit there for a week? All right, the boat's done.
Where's the rain?
I got a giraffe. I didn't know there were giraffes. Now I got a giraffe. You know, the boat's done. And
let me
day
put
3,
it,
day 4, day
hot
5.
rodder term.
Yeah, you know, Noah had a wife. She's probably,
okay.
you know, hey, what are you doing, man? You know, he had kids.
Where's the rain?
Okay, Dad, we built the boat. Good one. Where's the rain? And we're waiting on the rain right now.
Let me put it in hot rodder terms. Okay, you go up to the starting line. They put some stuff on the track to get tires in it, and you do a burnout and you heat your tires up. And then you have to back the car up, and then you have to get it right up to the starting line so that your wheels are in exactly the right spot. Everybody has to get out of the way because people are out there getting things prepared to go. And then you're waiting for the Christmas tree, the light bar in the center of the track between the drivers, to click, 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 bam, green. That is the longest, shortest period of time in the world because everything's running. It's going full tilt. If you take too long, something overheats, something doesn't work right. You're waiting for it to punch it, and you're all ready to go. And you got to wait for somebody up in the tower to hit the button and bang, bang, and go. And if the other guy's taking time to stage, you're sitting here all lined up, and they're staging the other guy. Come on, I'm ready to go. So, this is, we're there. I can only tell you also that there is certain things that all the ducks have to be in a row. This isn't just for really literally just the presidency. It isn't even just for the United States. The whole world is hanging on these next few moments.
Yes.
And what has to happen. Are we going to let the bank robbers get away, get down the street, get around the corner? If the bomb blows up in the bag full of cash and they got blue dye all over them, okay, they're marked. Does that, change anything? How do you do that? What's the next piece of the puzzle? I don't want to go way deep in the weeds here on your show right now. I did a show with Prim and Jen. You met him. He actually goes by Prime, but they mispronounce it. He a victim of a public school education. His name is really Prim. He didn't even know it. But you met Prim and Jen this weekend, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, fun folks. They had a show I did last week. If you go listen to that show, I get into the mechanics of exactly what the sequence is to restore President Trump to the presidency, and then do the arrests and checking of what's got to happen next. So if you want to get, for those people going, well, give me details. I did it. Go over there, Prim and Jen, listen to their show and get the details. I'm trying to give some of the broad principles here. And there's, sometimes people get too into the details. Your life, what God's telling you to do, might not be what he wants the next person to do. For example, you got to be at this event this weekend. You had the capability, you had the wherewithal, you were called, you talked to a very large audience. It was necessary in this broader structure of what God's doing that you be there. There was other people that somebody say, well, the gal who takes care of her parents in Denver, is she critical to God's operation? Somewhere she is, because she showed up. God called her. Okay, I don't know what that is. God knows. Sometimes it's the person you least expect who's the most important in some detail of what happens. Okay. And I can tell you other situations where that happened even over the last few days. People that became critical that you wouldn't identify as critical, they showed up. But it's just a phase in it. Doesn't mean that what you did in showing up is the only opportunity, it's the most important opportunity. No, it isn't. God has a particular sequence. And in the next phase, some people in your listenership may be exactly the person that absolutely must be there at some phase to bring other people to the story who then have some other form, relationship, knowledge, access, something that carries this message forward to the next spot. It's a relay. Um, I'm looking forward to see God build that out, and people will come back with stories, just like I told you. The 107 thing, stunning. Same exact number with V, 107,000 is the number on the cock, and something else that happened. So sometimes there's like it's not a message for everybody else. It wasn't your message; it was a message to me. It's not maybe understandable to everybody else. Everybody else is like, that's gobbledygook, I don't get the meaning. Well, okay, and a guy didn't get struck by lightning and then show up at exactly the same place to have a conversation with me, that ends up with him showing up, two guys struck by lightning in the same room at the same place
Already
on
feeling
some
led.
similar
Already feeling
subject
led to
matter.
talk about a near-death experience.
Yeah,
and
and to
then
talk to you specifically,
right,
both of those guys.
and then compare that to the United States as a whole, because this is what all these people. I had a phone call this morning from somebody that everybody in your audience would know exactly who this person is. They could not have lived in America and not know who this person is. And they were hand wringing, they were sweating, they were all upset, but why, but why, but why, but it's not, but how can this happen? How can do all these executives? It's all over, it's over, it's the end. And you can't, it's how you should just, we should all be in crying and tears because it's all over. No, it can't get solved. It's over. And I'm like, in God's world, over isn't a word. For
No.
if he wants to move, it's going to happen. And do we all know the exact specifics? God likes to save some of these things for so he gets the glory. They're
Yep.
seen a certain way. Okay. I just know that, just like, let me say it this way. When Jim and I are talking and he says, I got to show you this movie, Jim was thinking about something next year, some other thing might have a little contact. We could start somewhere. He never expected, and he would say this to his audiences anywhere, anything like what happened this weekend. I didn't. So everybody that showed up had a mission, had a calling. They're supposed to be there. Everybody that shows up in these later things, they're on a mission. They have a calling. They're supposed to be there. They're going to be part of a move of God. You want to help save the children, you got to be part of the message. Everywhere you put the sole of your foot, you're going to take your country back and take back the planet. But each person, I don't know what your mission is precisely. A lot of people would think that, well, I didn't get to go to the one in Las Vegas, so now it's all over with. No, it's just starting. You plant your crops at different elevations based on when it warms up. Lower altitudes, you can plant earlier. Higher altitudes, you got to wait a little longer. It's the right season for other people in other parts of the country. When it's right, it's right. And the rest of your audience needs to show up in that day. Look, when God calls, you got to answer. I believe a lot of your audience is going to be called here shortly to do something, to take some action, to respond in some way. When he calls you, be ready to answer. And if you do, there's a blessing somewhere in there for showing up. So, you guys got blessed because you got some new contacts. You had some fun. It was very interesting. Is it exclusive? I don't think so. I think that's where a lot of people misunderstand. What God has in mind for you is not the same thing as he has in mind for me. So trying to convolute things, trying to mix up those messages. Look, wherever you're at any given day, part of the reason you were there over the weekend is because you'd answered other calls of God faithfully. other times in your life? How many times when you answered it and then it led to the opportunities that led to being there this weekend? You start somewhere. And part of that's going to be answering a call of God over these next weeks and months and year, as we move through the process, not just of taking our country back in some figurative way, but taking a stand, being counted, shouldering up to occupy our land for our people, and to push out these people who are occupying us for foreign enemies, who are occupying us for people who have dastardly purposes and want to lord them over us and to control us and to shut us up. You know, an
Wow.
occupying army, once you've won the war, you still have to occupy the city and own those streets so the enemy doesn't filter back in. Evil things are being done all across the country because people aren't standing up and being counted. Oh, I'm afraid. They're going to see me. They're going to do something against me. They're going to take action against me. I got to hide my cell phone. I got to, go find a deeper, bomb shelter to hide in. No, we're going to take our country back. We're going to own it once again. And somehow, that may not be understandable, each person has a different calling of God on them. So whatever does God give the same mission to every one of us? No. Sometimes we're in the same place at the same time. But look, God had two guys that were struck by lightning in the same house the other night with me. One of them had a very precise message from God for me. The other one, we were having a great time. We enjoyed ourselves. We sang with the pianist. We just had a beautiful time. But he didn't have a message from God for me that was precise to that moment. Well, but they were both struck by lightning. Why didn't God tell them both the same thing? Why did he have to bring a different guy to tell you something? He already had one guy there ready to go. He just tell the guy he already struck by lightning. He's right there in the room, because that wasn't the mission for the day.
That's good.
I'm not going to second guess God.
That is so good. When you were talking, something that God, was just sharing with me earlier this year in my quiet time is that each person is so important. There's not one person that's more significant than another. It's like your body, you can't say, oh, my heart's more important than my brain. It's like each part of the body is significant, and no matter what it looks like, and you were talking about the lady that was taking care of her parents, that's a very important job, and you can't take that away that she's not doing this over here, but I'm not doing what she's doing.
Right.
And I think each person is very significant. So that was huge.
It's like we talked to Benny Johnson earlier this year from Bethel Church in Reading, about puzzles. When you finish a puzzle, is there one piece you're okay without being able to find if it's on the floor somewhere? You look hard for that last missing piece. You'll turn over the carpet. You'll look everywhere. It's the most important piece. It doesn't matter if it's the center or an edge or whatever. It drives you crazy if even one piece is missing when you're finishing a puzzle.
Yep. Because it's like a discordant note on the piano, and there's no relief there.
Right.
So everybody has to show up. There is a puzzle aspect to this. Everybody has to show up. It's not, you get a corner piece, you get a key color piece. That was stuff that happened this weekend. But now everybody else we got a couple pieces of the puzzle, but it's far from done. Well, we're going to do some events that are intended to provide the opportunity for everybody else to show up to fill in the puzzle pieces in getting America back on track and to pushing these enemies out to where there's no place left for them. There's a song by I think Guns N' Roses, and in my mind, I hear that song and it's demons crying out, because what's the song? Where will we go now? Where will we go now? It's like somebody has died and the demons have to go find another body to possess. Where will I go now? Where will we go now? If America stands up and is counted, these demons forced out of our country, out of our land. And where will they go now? Are we going to just let them go into the swine on the hill, or are they going to hell? we're going to take our country back. But everybody has to stand up and be counted. And it could be out in flyover country, Kansas or Nebraska or Iowa or Montana or Colorado, or it could be in the middle of the densest jungles in New York and New Jersey and Los Angeles. And each one of the people has to show up. If you're called by God, you gotta show up. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, you gotta show up. Those people that showed up this weekend, it was like they had a burning, whoa, I gotta be there. It's gonna be something with this movie. It's about children and child trafficking and pedophilia and all this other stuff. I gotta be there. They had a heart for it. Well, okay, they were called by God to be there, and they showed up. When your audience is called in their station, in their locale, to be present and accounted for, don't be AWOL. Mm. You know what I'm saying? And then, just to wrap it up, because I have other meetings I have to get to here, and I've got some folks that have been waiting. Granted, the hot rod's fast enough to get me there, probably, but
it's not a DeLorean, but it's pretty fast.
So I want to be a gentleman to get going.
Well, I want to tell you this also. We appreciate your time so much. You're so generous, and you don't. It doesn't compartmentalize itself just to your time. You're generous with your energy. You're generous with
with your finances.
We were at the nicest restaurant I might have ever been at, and normally in our situation, we're backgrounds business, and there's often times where people scatter at the end and we're just kind of left with the bill, and people kind of, it's not a balanced out thing. And, you treated us to dinner, mm-hmm. You're generous in every single area, and there was never an ask. It was just a lopsided give, mm-hmm. a lopsided give. So, I'm personally very thankful, but I know a lot of people are mm-hmm. with you as well.
Well, I enjoyed that. It's like I said, that I don't think you were there. I had another private dinner before everybody showed up, and I had some of the other folks that were there privately. I think it was on Thursday night or something. And we were doing some strategy related to this. And I told the folks that showed up, because it ended up being, I think, about 50 people, but they're my heroes. All those people that showed up in the movie, you guys are my heroes. I mean, people think, I am so excited. I feel so privileged to get to be in the room and spend time with the people that are actually the people that are my heroes. You guys are my heroes, because you're talking to all these people. You've got these important messages. You're doing this important work. I'm so excited to get to be part of it. And then I get to, break bread with you too. I mean, I don't know how many you had the night you were there. I had a couple of nights where we had about 20 people in there for dinner. I think I had like 5 or 6 seatings over the few days where we all broke bread, just like your dinner that I had there. And a friend of mine's restaurant that owns that. And I think it is the best steak restaurant in Vegas. But anyway, we had just a beautiful time. And that for me was maybe a highlight of the whole weekend, just getting to hang out with the people that are doing this important work, all my heroes. And I'm looking forward to, even out with the rest of the country, with the stuff that's got to be done with the show with Jim and the movie, getting to rub shoulders with, be in the same room with people who are doing important work in the kingdom of God. You guys are all my heroes. I'm the beneficiary. It's just a lot of fun, and oh, by the way, okay. So I gotta get flying, but I wanted to tell you something. So I just sent you over a couple pictures. Did you see those?
Yes, we got them. And I think we can share them to the screen here if you'd like as well.
Yeah. Do you like my vet?
Yes, your vet was beautiful.
Yeah, I had to hide the red one because everybody knew I was in town, so I was getting pulled over on the road. Hey, is that you? So I had
There we go. There's
so
the silver one.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, that one. There you go.
It's like a
So,
DeLorean, but
anyway,
better looking.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not like a DeLorean. This actually has horsepower. That's got about
but can
got
it
about
travel in time?
525 horse. Yeah, that's actually a pretty powerful car. It's a spectacular car. In fact, I'm probably going to give it away. But anyway, the interesting thing is, people are all anxious. They're all upset. They're all excited. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? The one thing I was going to say is that, if we show up, just like you showed up at this event, there was a spirit of expectation. I have a spirit of expectation that a move of God is just around the corner. We're right on the precipice of it. The green light is about to go off, and you're going to go full pedal to the metal to do things that must be done to get the country back. There's this expectation that I think all of your listeners should have, instead of being hand wringing like my friend was this morning, who everybody know who this person is, everybody. And what I said is, no, God's going to do something amazing here. He hasn't given up on us at all. We're these bad guys, and I do think they're bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people say whatever they want. Look, when
they're the worst guys.
Yeah. Sick.
Well, let me just say it this way. When you rescind an order that then makes it possible for the pedophiles to stick around if they've been identified, stay here in America, if you rescind an order that pushed them out and said you can't come here, where's that an American thing? You look at all those executive orders, and so many of them are handing the country off to people overseas, etc., against the interests and best interests of the American people, the home team who paid for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, let's just be specific. Let's call that order what it was, and who did that? That happened Monday.
Yeah. Was it
or Tuesday? The last couple of days. So I don't want to timestamp this because people can enjoy this into the future. But what was the name of the act that President Trump put in place? The Talon Act, and then that was rescinded.
Mm-hmm. Well, again,
by Joseph Biden this week.
Right. And so to me, let me just say this. There's certain triggers. There's certain lines in the sand that when you cross them, are you mocking God, the devil himself, and his agents, doing things that are clearly at odds with the will of God? When you cross certain lines, that becomes the final thing that then God will not look the other way. There was a certain line in the sand, and then the meteorites come for Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mm-hmm.
When they were having a rave, a great big huge party in Babylon, and they're all drinking and feasting and having a great time, and then the king's laughing about how he's got the Jews, and he's got all of their treasure, and he calls for the utensils from the temple of God to be brought in, because they're going to drink from these utensils, the gold cups and bowls and everything else, and they're going to use them in their fetid, corrupt party, drinking and drunken rave. The king called, bring all the golden cups out from their temple. That God, they thought he could beat us. No, come on, bring him in here. We're gonna pour the wine deeper. We're gonna piss in the cups. We're gonna do whatever we want. God can't do a thing. Their God isn't nothing. We are Babylon. We're king of the world. And then they get him in there. They're all doing whatever. They're drunk. They could care less about God. Who? He's not stopping us. And out of the darkness In the middle of that candlelit rave, a white hand appears, just the hand. And the finger of God writes in the stone like it was butter, and writes some words in the stone. The handwriting on the wall. And they can't understand it. It's in a language they don't even understand. So then, while their knees are shaking because they just saw a hand as a ghost and they saw what it did, they all saw it and they're half sobering up while their knees are shaking, and they call for the prophet of God. And the prophet shows up and they show him what just happened. They tell him what just happened. A hand appeared from nowhere in the midst of all of us and wrote on the wall, what does it mean? And the prophet reads it because he has the mind of God. He can hear and see what God had to say. And he says, this day, the kingdom will be taken away from you, and your lives will be required. It's all over. I'm telling you, as sure as we're sitting here, they have challenged God. They've gone one step too far. They've challenged and gone against the will of God. And they've gone after the innocents, the children, and God is not mocked. God's children are not for sale. And those people that are doing that thought they could get away with it, Baal worshipers in America, Babylon in America, the day has come. God will not be mocked. This is all going down. Nobody has to say a date. Nobody has to do anything. But I can tell you, as sure as shit stinks, and it stinks to high heaven, God has smelled in his nostrils the stink of what's going on. He will not tolerate it long. And when he acts, when he strikes, when he uses his instruments, his people, his leaders that are doing stuff in his name, according to his will, he'll use a rock to bring down their monuments if he has to strike it. But he'd prefer to use his people, and he's about to use his people to take back this country. And some of the people know that. And if you look, it's interesting to see that what I saw over a year ago, what I wrote about in my book, the election 2020 will be an election victory. The election victory will be equal to the MAGA, the Make America Great Again crowd, not squared, not to the second power, but to the third power. Election 2020 equals MAGA cubed over corn. These corn products, these farm products, you know, at the three-letter agencies when they're training their operatives to go do all the stuff that they do undercover and intelligence operations, they go to the farm. That's where they're trained. So they go to the farm and they get this, you know, training, and then go out in the world and do everything they're doing. These three-letter agency trainees have been out taking positions of authority and power all through government and across the world and in business and other places, and then doing things against the best interests of the American people. They're the corn. Election 2020 equals MAGA to the third power cubed over corn. And then on every page of my book, I had every number of every page with a cube over it, because it's all about cubed for this period. Election Victory Edition, MAGA cubed over corn. That's what's going to determine the election outcome. With that in mind, look at the imagery that I sent you from the pages from the book. Look at the book itself. Look at what's there on those various pages. And page 77, Trump victory. Election equals mega cubed over corn. And what did I use? What was that cube look like? What's the color that I used there? The exact color. And then go and see, did anybody know anything? Was anybody conveying anything? Is it truly over? When Melania steps off the dress at Mar-a-Lago,
Let's go ahead and pop up that screen on
what
real quick. There you go.
imagery? What imagery is she using?
Look at the
Every
cubes.
single.
Orange.
Now timestamp this in a sequence for us, Juan. Did you and Melania get together and design this and put this together? Are you the consultant for her fashion?
Oh, maybe God's telling us something. Maybe just like this guy comes and shows up and does a I heard from God, lightning came from space, I was struck. What's that all about?
Man, that is just crazy. That is crazy. It's exciting to see that in your book, and then to see Melania actually wearing the dress. I mean and it was a year apart that actually happened.
Yes. Well, I mean, again, this is about I don't know. Did they want to send a message? Was that accidental? Is that some act of God to tie things together? Did they do it for some other reason? But then it ends up that the same message is coming through different messengers to all of us. I don't know. Is it the coincidence of showing up at the valet parking at the exact same moment that the other guy shows up? But I already got another guy that was struck by lightning. Why don't you tell him? Because that's not the guy that was struck by lightning. I wanted to tell this message. Okay. We both got struck by lightning at the same time, or different events or whatever, and we got the same message. I don't know. I'm just telling you.
That is so much fun.
Continuity. Okay.
Wow. That is so cool.
One more time,
right.
give us.
I got folks that are waiting for me. They're beating the door down, so I've got to get going. I took longer than I should have, but I wanted to make sure we got this message all the way out for folks. And
no, we appreciate it. We appreciate the formulas, things. For those of you listening, we're going to break down every single thing that he shared. We'll put it in the call notes below. Get the book. If you don't have the book, you're going to want the book. You need the book. You need it to help interpret the world that's happening around you. I think it's important to spend time in prayer. It's important time to spend with people who are in the know, to spend time in the Word of God. But when he's also working through people that are amongst us right now to share, code.
They're like little winks. They're like secrets from God.
Hey,
it's treasures.
Yoo-hoo. This is what's happening in the world right now. You need to reach out and grab a hold of it. You're going to want the playbook of what's going on so you can interpret these events.
Make sure you get this book.
The Kid by the Side of the Road.
Yep.
Get it. We'll put the link down below.
I appreciate you guys
so
saying
check that out.
Actually, the inaugural edition is the one that's coming next. That'll be out. I'm probably gonna have a pause in here. We got a few of those left, but that's about to shut down. There'll be an inaugural edition that'll have some different imagery. So if you don't get this one in time, don't sweat it. There's gonna be another one shortly. I mean, it's fun to have the first edition. Second edition is just as neat. So we get it now. It'll be first come first serve here in a couple of weeks when the election edition's available, and there's a few of these left, but not very many. So anyway, don't be upset if you didn't get it. The other one's very cool. It has stuff from the call and like that in it, and it'll be a really cool edition too. So anyway, folks,
thank you so much, Juan. We really appreciate your time. You have a great day, and again, thank you so much for just giving. You are such a giver, and we just really appreciate it. So we just thank our listeners, too, for joining us. We just bless you. We bless you to remember that the future is brighter than your past. We bless you to remember that you are important, that your voice is important, and things that are coming up, like we talked about with the Sound of Freedom, that you being there and then sharing it with others, that it's important, and this is a great time to be alive. In fact, I think it's the best time to be alive. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us